Rheumatic and musculoskeletal diseases, RMDs, are a devastating set of conditions that involve the musculoskeletal system. In Europe alone, more than 120 million people are affected, with extraordinary impact on those individuals, on their families, on society as a whole. Now, there are many different types of diseases within the RMD group. They can involve very specific problems of the joints, wear and tear, so-called degenerative arthritis, all the way through to inflammatory problems targeting only joints or potentially many other tissues, the heart, the lung, the skin, the nervous system. People so afflicted will tend to describe pain. They'll notice swelling in the affected area. They'll feel stiffness in their joints. And of course, if the diseases affect other major organs, then the whole range of clinical health-related matters can come to the fore. Now, there are many reasons to really care about RMDs, probably the most important being the effect that they have on individuals, on their well-being, and that of their families. But as a society, we need to care. RMDs are the biggest cause of sick leave and premature retirement in society. They have a huge economic burden, not only on healthcare systems, but on secondary delivery of quality. Think of all of the talent that we lose as a result of those who suffer from RMDs. The impact on quality of life is dramatic. Individuals can go from full function to being almost bedbound in a matter of days or weeks. It's really important that we recognize RMDs early, that we make the diagnosis and we make the critical interventions at a time when damage and disability can be prevented and when function and quality of life can be preserved. Now, one of the most important developments in the last 2 or 3 decades of healthcare has been our understanding that early diagnosis across a range of diseases is absolutely critical. Now, it's self-evident that the early recognition of a heart attack or a stroke will lead to improved outcomes. We believe that the early recognition of RMDs is similarly vital. The earlier we detect disease, the sooner we can intervene, and the better will be the outcome for the individuals concerned and for society as a whole. Now, it's for this reason that EULAR, the European League Against Rheumatism, is launching an awareness campaign. Don't delay, connect today. We believe that it's vital that people with RMDs have their symptoms and signs diagnosed early and have appropriate treatment started as soon as is feasible and possible. Let's think for a few minutes about what it is that we're trying to prevent. Here are some images that tell you a little bit about the devastating structural impact of diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis. You can see here gross destruction of joints, swellings in a variety of parts of the body, inflammation in the eye leading eventually to visual loss, for example. And in this X-ray, you get some idea of the power of the inflammatory response, eating into bone, leading to destruction and damage. You would have thought that such a devastating condition would be picked up rather quickly, but in fact, we know that even although there have been improvements in the last decade or so, there can be a period of years between the onset of symptoms and the diagnosis by healthcare professionals. I'd like to use rheumatoid arthritis as an example to tell you a little bit about how important early diagnosis can be. Rheumatoid arthritis is a disease of inflammation, a disease whereby the immune system attacks our own tissues, especially our joints. And the revolution in care that has occurred in rheumatoid in the last decade has been led primarily by the understanding that the earlier we intervene, the less damage that will occur. Now, damage and disability are critically linked to each other. Not only that, but disability and mortality are related to each other. And it follows, therefore, that if we can diagnose early, treat early, and prevent damage, so too we will reduce disability and we will reduce long-term mortality. Now, the idea of mortality in arthritis may be surprising to you, but in fact, people with uncontrolled inflammatory diseases of the joints and indeed of other connective tissues, the heart, the lungs, and the brain, have early death. And people with rheumatic musculoskeletal diseases will on average lose between 5 and 10 years of life expectancy. Early diagnosis, early treatment can impact and reduce that terrible deficit. So let's think about the steps that are necessary for early diagnosis. Well, first of all, we need early referral to a rheumatologist for appropriate consideration and treatment if necessary. Rheumatologists are healthcare professionals whose expertise is the understanding and treatment of RMDs. Then we need to treat. We need access to care, we need access to facilities, and we need access to medicines. The primary principle of treatment is so-called treat to target. So we're very familiar with the idea of detecting a high blood pressure, reducing blood pressure so that we reduce the chance of a stroke or a heart attack. So too now we are starting to measure activity of arthritis in joints, and we aim for a low disease state, we aim for remission, and until we get there we continue to escalate therapy. And that has, rather obviously, the need for us to monitor the response to treatment. And so early intervention means recognition, it means decision making, it means access to appropriate treatments, and it needs ongoing access to care. Early interventions, particularly in rheumatoid arthritis, although increasingly we recognize this across a range of forms of arthritis, leads to improvement in health status. We know that health status declines early in disease. We know that disability occurs early in disease, and we know that both will lead in due course to morbidity and mortality. Similarly, when we use very sophisticated imaging approaches, for example MRI, we understand that damage is occurring extremely early. Those two things taken together make it self-evident that recognition of disease early will be critical. There's a large volume of evidence now. The commencement of so-called disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. These are medicines that control inflammation, they control pain, and they prevent damage. The earlier they're used, the better the outcomes for individuals. This we term a window of opportunity. We're trying to see people with RMDs at a time when the window of treatment opportunity is open. All too often, patients come late, and by then the chance to really suppress their disease activity and to maintain their function over time is lost. What a tragedy to lose that window of opportunity for want of an understanding of how important early diagnosis is. So EULAR is working very hard to address this window of opportunity. We have a whole range of initiatives designed to make the diagnosis early and to optimize the treatment thereafter. In 2016, we updated our recommendations for the management of early arthritis. We addressed a whole range of factors. We highlighted the importance of shared decision-making between patients and healthcare professionals. We highlighted the critical importance of that window of opportunity. Time matters. And we've also offered a whole range of advices as to what clinical and laboratory investigations may be most helpful and what imaging should be available and useful. And we've also laid out the whole range of management and lifestyle options that are available to people in that circumstance. Most importantly, we've launched this campaign. Don't delay, connect today. Social and economic benefits will accrue both to individuals and to society. We want to prevent disability. We want to promote ability. We want to focus on health and not on illness. We want to reduce work loss, absenteeism, and early retirement. We want to diminish the costs that RMDs impose on healthcare and on the social structures of society. It's really important that we raise awareness of RMTs with general practitioners and healthcare providers. We need to minimize the delays in diagnosis. It's vital that we raise awareness of RMDs amongst the general public. People need to know that their symptoms could be serious and that they can be addressed quickly and accurately by appropriately trained healthcare professionals. And it's vital that we raise awareness of the RMDs with politicians, policymakers, and other stakeholders to ensure that they focus with sufficient attention upon the RMDs. We need to bring the RMDs to the attention of all those who have the opportunity to change the outcome. One of the simplest messages we can give is why allow people to suffer for a day longer than is necessary? If people are suffering joint pain and swelling, tiredness and stiffness, they shouldn't hesitate to ask healthcare professionals for help. Don't delay. Connect today.